All right, welcome everyone to the first fall STORK seminar series of 2022. So this is our first official meeting after the STORK Summit. Welcome everyone. I'm Vanessa, I'm the chair of STORK, and I just want to put a plug before I get into the talk that we are looking for people to take over the chair, the treasurer, and outreach chair. So we're looking for people to kind of step up and come join us on this STORK journey. So to introduce our speaker, we are going to hear from Mathieu Boisgantier. I think I messed it up.
Yeah,
who is faculty at the University of Ottawa. And he is going to talk to us about peer community in a new initiative that we all could learn about and maybe jump on board. All right, over to you.
Thanks, Vanessa. So hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to present this talk seminar today. I will start by quickly introducing myself. So as you can see, I have a background in kinesiology and physical therapy. My main research interests are sensory motor control and physical activity. I'm currently an associate professor at the University of Ottawa. I've been a member of STORK since the very early days, and I'm now a managing editor of their journal, so Communications in Kinesiology, or SIC. And today I'd like to present a new initiative called Peer Community In, or PCI. So to explain why PCI is an important initiative, I need to talk about publishers' revenues. So in 2019, these revenues reached $28 billion. So it's a lot of money. Actually, I think it's too much money to really grasp what this amount means. $28 billion, what does that represent? Let's see. So we know that 40% of these revenues are made in the US. That is $11 billion. We also know that the total budget of the NIH in the same year was around $39 billion. So the annual revenue of scientific publishers in the US is worth 29% of the NIH budget. In Europe, Middle East, and Africa, publishers make it a bit more than $7 billion, which is the total budget of the French National Center for Scientific Research, the Wellcome Trust, the European Research Council, and the Dutch Research Council, taken together. So this $28 billion could be used to fund a lot of research and many researchers. But for now, we decide to invest this money in publishers. Because yes, this money comes from us, from academia, from universities, from research institutes. So yeah, from us and mostly from taxpayers. And we all know that in addition to agreeing to pay publication charges and fees that could be described as abusive, we also agree to do the work ourselves for free. The result of this free labor that we graciously provide to the publishers is that they are making mega profits. Their margins are higher than leading companies such as Amazon, Apple, and even Bank of America. So they make more profits than banks. So I get it, it's a business of research communication, and it's the job of publishers to do whatever they can to make more profits. But I also think that as a community that is mainly based on money from taxpayers, we have the responsibility to not waste their money. And ideally, I think we all wish their profit margins were more reasonable. And we also need to keep in mind that it's not only about the profits. The whole amount is important because keeping this money in our community would contribute to its growth, both in terms of size and expertise. Giving it to publishers reduces this growth, and at the same time, we lose decision-making power. We have no say in how this money is used. Yet, most likely, we wouldn't use it the same way as the publishers. So how can we change this situation? For sure, it's not with Gold Open Access. Gold Open Access is when the authors have to pay an expensive fee to make their article free to the readers. And because the words open access are in there, people think it's good, but it's actually part of the problem. In my opinion, Gold Open Access is the greenwashing of publishing. It's difficult to fight because it's a clever but harming marketing spin. So, Gold Open Access is not part of the solution. What else? In my opinion, one strategy that could pay off is to reclaim the ownership of the peer review process. Because make no mistake, just because you do all the peer review work doesn't mean that you own the process. For now, we do the peer reviews, but the publishers own them. What happens is that we go to their house, knock, knock, hi, you contacted me earlier, I'm coming to do the peer review. I'm sorry, I promise I will do it as fast and as thoroughly as I can. And then we do the work, and then here you go, the work is done. Thank you so much for inviting me. By the way, I would like to publish my work in your journal, but I think that $3,000 is a bit too expensive. Can we discuss it? Can we negotiate a bit? And no, we can't. We cannot. I'm sorry. Here are the 3K. This is what's happening right now. And we don't want that anymore, because due to this situation, we don't have any leverage when we don't have any negotiation power when it comes to the fees or APCs we pay to publish our work. What we should aim for is to keep doing the peer review work, but doing it outside the publishers' houses. We should keep it within our community or in the public domain. Okay, so let's do the peer review in our community. But where can we find the manuscript we need to peer review, as they are often directly sent to the publishers? Well, that's an easy one. We can use a pre-printed version of these manuscripts. A preprint is a scientific manuscript that is uploaded by the authors to a public server. This preprint is made available to the public in days, which is really quick, which is really good. But the problem is that it's not peer-reviewed, So the first preprints appeared in 1991, more than 30 years ago. In biomedical sciences, each month, more than 14,000 preprints are published. Today, using preprints, in my opinion, is a no-brainer. But I'm not here to discuss preprints. If you want to know more about it, please visit the ASAP Bio website. It's a great website to get all the relevant information you need about preprints. What I'm here for is to discuss the next step, which is how do we get preprints to be peer-reviewed? It seems like an easy step, but believe me, it's not. I consider myself pro-open science, and I've reviewed over 200 articles. Yet, I've never reviewed a single preprint. In our field, peer-reviewed preprint is not a thing. And we need to change that, because this is what can get us a healthier publishing system. To make peer-reviewed preprint a thing, we need to get organized. And that's when PCI comes in. There are already 15 PCI communities, and we are trying to create a new one in our field in health and movement sciences. Now, I will explain the editing, peer reviewing, and publishing process offered by PCI. So, the first thing we do or can do when a study is complete is to post the data and code to a data repository and post the manuscript to a preprint server. Until recently, this was where the life of a preprint ended. Now, you can use the DOI of the preprint to submit it to the PCI website. There, a PCI recommender, the equivalent of editors, will take a look at your preprint and decide whether they are interested in editing it. Here, it's important to understand that the PCI design is a bit different than the one of a traditional journal. So there is no editor-in-chief to tell the editors they should take care of a manuscript. When the preprint is posted to the PCI website, all the recommenders can read it. If one recommender is interested, think it's of sufficient quality, and has time to invest in it, they can decide to take care of the preprint. So they click on it and they say, okay, I will take care of this one. So there is much more freedom for the recommenders, and this is why we need as many recommenders as possible when starting a new PCI. The minimum is 50, so 50 recommenders to start the PCI, because we want the burden to be shared by the community rather than to rely on specific individuals. If the preprint is not of sufficient quality, it will likely not be considered by any recommender. So when a recommender selects a preprint, they have the responsibility to find at least 2 reviewers. Then it's the same process as in any journal. Major comments, revision, minor comments, revision, and so on. And the preprint can, of course, be rejected. When the quality of the preprint is deemed satisfactory, the preprint is published in the preprint server. In addition, the recommender writes a recommendation that is published in the PCI website, together with the reviews and the author's responses. So how does it look on the PCI website? It looks like this. You have a list of recommended preprints. If you select one of them, it takes you to the recommendation webpage of the paper, where you can find the abstract, the recommendation from the recommender, the reviews, the recommender's assessment, the different rounds, and the author's replies. So you have everything on the website. And the preprint, the accepted or the recommended preprint, is on the preprint server. Now, what happens when the preprint is peer-reviewed and recommended? There are 4 options. The first option is to stop the process right there. After all, the preprint is now peer-reviewed as a DOI, and it's findable and it's citable, so we could stop there. But we are used to have our work published in journals. And in terms of journals, the first option is to submit the peer-reviewed preprint to the peer community journal. So the journal of the PCI, they created a journal, multidisciplinary journal, and we can publish this peer-reviewed preprint there. So the peer community journal will accept the peer-reviewed preprint right away as is. This journal has been launched 1 year ago and already counts over 115 published articles. It's a diamond open access journal, meaning that it's free for everyone, readers and authors. So, and you have a nice typeset paper. The following two options are to submit it to a PCI-friendly journal or a non-PCI-friendly journal. What is a PCI-friendly journal? It's a journal that has agreed to consider the peer reviews made by the PCI. When an editor of a journal decides that their journal should become PCI-friendly, they have three options. The first option is to systematically accept to publish a PCI peer-reviewed preprint without further reviews. In our field, there are two journals in that category: Peer Community Journal, of course, and PeerJ. The second option is to guarantee a response to the authors within a maximum of 5 days. The response can be accept without further reviews. It can also be, yeah, we like the paper, but we think the review could have been more thorough, and we would like to add another reviewer. And the third option is, yeah, we are not interested in the preprint, sorry about that. So in our field, 3 journals have chosen this option. So our journal, Communications in Kinesiology, PLOS Biology, and Collabora Psychology. This second option, so providing a response within 5 days, is really interesting because it suppresses the cycle of submissions and rejections we have all experienced with some papers, which is a waste of time for the authors, a waste of energy for the reviewers, and contributes to the fact that we need to contact at least 20 reviewers to get 2 of them to accept to review the paper. We are tired. So with PCI, we have one review process, a single one, irrespective of the number of journals the peer-reviewed preprint is submitted to. The third option for journals who decide to be PCI friendly is to state they will use the PCI reviews if appropriate, meaning they may or may not use it. So there were a lot of slides, but at the end of the day, it's a very simple process. You post your preprint, you get a DOI, you submit it to the PCI. A recommender takes care of your preprint that is then peer-reviewed and recommended, and then you can submit it to a PCI-friendly journal or any other journal. So there are many benefits to this process. First, as authors, you know if one or more PCI-friendly journals are interested in your paper within days. Second, you are certain to have the opportunity to publish your paper in a Diamond Open Access journal that should soon be indexed in PubMed, so the peer community journal. Third, your preprint gets an open and detailed recommendation. Fourth, you take some peer reviewing workload off the community. And last but not least, you help the community to take ownership of the peer review process, which in the long term, I think we are working for the next generation, but in the long term should provide some leverage to negotiate decisions made by the publishers, such as the amount of the publishing fees or APCs. So now that you are aware of all this, I'm sure you would like to contribute to this PCI initiative. Well, there are multiple ways to do so. The most obvious is to join the PCI we are trying to create in health and movement sciences by adding your name to the Google Doc that is pinned on our Twitter account. On the same Google Doc, you can commit to submit a preprint to the PCI when it will be created. And then the next challenge will be to convince as many journals as possible to become PCI friendly. I think this is an important step to integrate PCI into the publishing landscape. So please talk to your editors, to your editorial boards about PCI and tell them the process to become PCI friendly is super easy. They just have to fill this short form online. That's it. So you can also talk to the dean of your faculty, to the library of your university, and to the board of the societies you are affiliated to. Tell them that being associated to PCI will be good for their image, as it shows that they support a healthier publishing system that will strengthen our community. So if they are afraid, and it's often the case, to lead the way, tell them they are not the first one to support the initiative. Tell them they would join many other university and research institutions across the world, and that they will also join libraries and scholarly societies that already support PCI. Finally, you can contribute to open science more broadly by contributing and publishing your work in Diamond Open Access journals or society and university journals, by sharing your data and code, by communicating your science on Twitter or your blog, and by contributing to open access software and packages, and by preprinting your work. Thank you. It will now be my pleasure to answer any question you may have.
Thank you so much. That was great. I'll just start off with one question that was put in the chat.
Yeah.
And the question is, just curious, who are the reviewers for this process? Do they have to be from the PCI community, or can it be anybody in the field?
It can be anybody in the field. The recommender should be in the community, so the editor.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? So the recommender takes charge like an editor, finds some peer reviewers. Probably you already said it, but are the reviews open? Can you see who, the names?
The reviews are open, but the reviewer decide whether he wants to show his name or her name or not.
Okay, and can authors still suggest reviewers if it's quite a topic, for example, a topic specific fields, the way it's typically done in more traditional peer review?
So they can suggest recommenders and reviewers.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
There's another question as well. Just thinking, is there a minimum criterion to join the PCI health movement? Can PhD students also join?
So for recommenders, they don't want PhD students. They say they need to have a PhD already and to be maybe advanced postdocs, because they need to write the recommendation, and they think to do that, they need to be more senior than PhD students. So the point they made was really about the recommendation that should be written. This was their main concern if we included PhD students as recommenders.
I had a question about the recommenders that we're gathering now. How do we ensure, so in health and movement sciences, that we have like a breadth of topics? Because you said it comes in and a recommender could take it, or it could be quote unquote rejected, but it could be rejected not because it was a bad science, but that there was no recommenders in that area.
Yeah, so I did my best to contact as many people as I could in different fields, and then it's up to maybe, as an author, if you have in mind some other people who are not yet recommenders, maybe you can tell the PCI, hey, these people are great, maybe you could contact them, and maybe they would be interested in becoming recommenders and join the PCI.
Yeah, that just a thought just came to me, just because we're such a broad discipline that I think it's going to take the community to kind of really make that as broad.
Yeah. So for now, we have many people in neuro, so sensory motor control and biomechanics, physical activity as well, because it's mainly the people I know, but in fields that are not in my field, it's more difficult to reach out to them because they don't know me, so they don't reply to my emails.
And I had a question on how long has the oldest PCI been around?
I think it was something like, I'm not sure exactly, but maximum 5 years. I think it started 5 years ago, and each year you have 1 to 5 new PCI communities.
So out of curiosity, have you spoken to many journals so far, and how have they responded? Because technically it takes so much work off them. Just wondering what's the response been like?
So for communication in kinesiology, it was easy. So I contacted because some of the people on the Google Doc are editor-in-chief, so I contacted them.
Nice.
And some of them are interested, but some of them are part of bigger publishers' houses, and they need to discuss with them. So for some of them, it's in process. From some others, they say, okay, I informed them and they will reply to me and I will keep you updated when I get a reply. From smaller journals, it's easier. They can make the decisions themselves. So I have some meetings next week with one of them, and I think it should work. I also had another journal in psychology, also joined as a PCI-friendly journal as a result of our discussion. So yeah, I'm trying. I think we'll start with smaller journals and then try bigger ones. But it's really a matter of communicating with the editorial board and convince them that what we are doing is important for the field.
I think once people see, once it works out well in one journal, then everyone wants to jump on the bandwagon. I think it's convincing those early ones that makes a big difference. But yeah, there's no doubt that it has massive potential.
Yeah, but it will take time to convince people, because I sent about 300 emails to people. I talked to more than 50 of them, and it really takes time. And I guess it will be the same for the journals, even more. So we will need some people to help us, but we'll see how it works. My idea is really to put this tool there, and hopefully people will use it at one point. I really think it will be a long-term process. I don't expect to have many submissions in the first year. So this is what I was telling in the talk. I think it's for the next generation. I think we are working for them, but I hope in the long term it will take off.
I think it will be the type of thing that perhaps progress will not be, it will be non-linear, because if one big publishing company like Taylor & Francis, Elsevier, Human Kinetics came, suddenly you have multiple journals all on board. Whereas, so I'm sure it'll take off. It'll just be a question of when.
Hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
There's another question in the chat. So they're asking if they want to publish the next paper through PCI, do they have to join PCI officially, or you just do the process as you showed on the slides?
No, you don't have to be a PCI member or support to submit your preprint. You just submit like in another journal. You just take the DOI of the preprint and you submit it to the PCI and select some potential recommenders, select some potential reviewers, and that's done. You just have to wait to see if a recommender decides to take care of your preprint.
Just out of curiosity then, as a follow-up to that question, obviously more and more preprints are being published on the like of Sport Archive. Is there any issue in simply opting in to send it to the PCI while simultaneously going with your journal review and your more traditional review and just see what happens? Or is it better to just go PCI? I'm just thinking with the sheer volume of preprints that are submitted, maybe not everyone will want to, maybe not everyone will be aware enough to go straight in, but if it was just to tick, do you want to do this? Then they almost get to test it. I don't know if that's realistic or not.
I'm not sure I got the question. Can you repeat, please?
Like, is it possible on, say, a Sport Archive, which is getting multiple submissions now, that there could be a button where people just say, do you want to test this? And it doesn't stop them from going to via the more traditional peer review route. So it wouldn't really be any extra work for them. It would just be an extra option. Is that a possibility, or is it better to just go PCI?
So if I understand correctly, you're asking me if we could do it systematically with preprints that are submitted to Sport Archive, or is it?
Yeah,
is
like
it
there's almost an opt-in button for, say, somebody who isn't aware of it. They upload to Sport Archive, and then it pops up a button. Would you like to send this for peer PCI? A kind of a list of the benefits.
Yeah, but the problem here, that I see, is that as soon as the preprint is, as soon as the recommender take a preprint in charge, you cannot submit it to a journal.
Yes, you're right. It would just be doubling up. Sorry, I was just thinking aloud as to whether it might be a way to just.
You cannot submit your preprint to a journal at the same time as the PCI.
PCI.
Either
Perfect. Yeah. Make a choice. Yep, that makes sense. Thank you.
I do have a question about the infrastructure behind PCI, because a lot of times people think that that's, the limiting factor. So the platform, or like who's moderating, like the logistics of somebody coming in and giving it to a recommender, or is it they provide the platform? And
they provide everything. We just have to deal with the rest. And they have, so it's from the French government, and they have money for at least 10 years, and they are confident it will be more because they really want to support it. So they don't need money. They just need people who support them and come into the PCI.
Nice. That's fantastic. That's a major bonus.
Yeah, that's good.
I have another question. Oh, no, just a comment. So I think that when you talked about like peer review and just kind of like the quote unquote wasting of reviews as we jump from journal to journal, I think that's a huge point, especially now. I think it's even become a crisis, or more of a crisis, that people cannot find people to review. And I think coming off the pandemic, everybody's just like, no, I'm not going to review. So I think this could be like a great moment in time of like kind of arguing. This will relieve us all of some of this.
Personally, what I think that what they are proposing is perfect. I really like it. The only thing that I'm not sure of is whether the peer review should be published when the preprint is not good enough. For now, they don't do it. And I don't know if in the long term it would be a good option, like eLife plans to do it. We just saw this big announcement some days ago. So now eLife will publish, they will just do a preprint peer review and publish everything, even the reviews when the preprint is bad.
I am hesitant about that because, as we've seen, particularly throughout COVID, sometimes there's blatant misinformation posted that should not be there, and people don't always read the small print of. Not everyone will look at the reviews. I think I'd be more in favor of, if it's not right, reject it. Maybe needs to go.
So
it's
for
tricky,
now, it's only a personal question. So for PCI, there is no question from them. They will keep like this. So they won't publish the peer reviews when the paper is not good enough. I was just thinking about it because eLife is starting to do it. So I was like, maybe, but most of the people have the same opinion as yours, Emir. So they think it's not a good thing.
I'm going to push back on that a little bit, because there's a lot of data that the accepted articles that have gone through peer review, and there's a lot of retractions lately, right? So the system that we have is not perfect. And I think that needs to be highlighted a lot too. Like, we think that we're trying to replace this like perfect system, but it's not.
But I don't think, I fully agree with you. Like, a lot of crap gets through. And I think the issue is more if there is something that's blatant misinformation. One of the biggest causes preprints. That's one of the biggest issues that kind of people against them. And I think it's certainly, I'm in favor of preprints, but it's certainly something that has to be considered. And I think there has to reach a point where this is inaccurate, it needs to be removed rather than just put up everything and let people make up their minds. But I also recognize obviously that does involve gatekeeping and who gets to decide what's right. I think obviously there's difficulties around that. I just think that there's some examples where some information shouldn't be in the world.
And I think you bring up a good point, because in our field, I think that might be something that we really need to think about, is how to deal with misinformation, because just the nature of our field, nutrition, fitness, health, right? There's just like an onslaught of just bad stuff out there.
Yeah. So my current opinion about that, and it may change, but is that currently, if you really want to publish something and you have some money, you will publish it. And the good thing to have the peer review of bad preprints is that at least we have a trace. We can go back to see, oh, there is a problem. Whereas when you submit it to 10 journals and it doesn't get accepted, and manage to get it to 11th one, and then it accepted, and there is no peer review, it just accepted. The situation is even worse, because people think it's a good paper and they don't have access to the peer review, and they don't have access to the 10th peer review before that told this paper is shit. So there is some good and some bad, I think.
I think that's a really interesting point. And I had an experience recently, actually 2 journal reviews, peer reviews that I did. Both myself and the other reviewer gave tough, critical reviews. However, the decision was made to reject. Like, we wanted to get the opinion, you see what the author said. And on 2 situations, the authors withdrew their papers after the review. And I did wonder, now obviously I don't know exactly why, but I did wonder, is this because they don't want to respond to the tough questions that were posed and will just submit elsewhere in the hope that different questions come up? I might be wrong, but I found it unusual.
Any other questions?
Hi, I like just a question to Mathieu. Thank you very much for the presentation. Did you think of any threshold to recommend or reject a paper in PCI? Like, how do you decide whether it's in the field of PCI, health and movement, or whether it's good enough?
So for the field, it would depend on the recommenders we have in the PCI. So it will not be up to us. It will be up to the community that is willing to join. And for the level of the quality level, in my opinion, as long as you share all the code, all the data, it's already a big step, as long as you are transparent. And then just make some reasonable answer to the request of the reviewers.
But so you, as an recommender, or us as recommenders, can we say, oh, I don't think this paper is good enough to send for review? So what's the threshold?
So yeah, so you don't have an editor-in-chief telling you, please take care of this preprint. You will just read the preprint yourself. And if you think it's not interesting, or you think it's not of sufficient quality, you will just not pick it. You will say, no, I don't care about this one. I will maybe read the other ones. So you decide right away if you want to take care of a preprint. Nobody tells you to do it. So, and it's good because also if for 1 year you are on a sabbatical, you don't have time, you don't have anybody telling you, hey, could you take care of this one? That's really important. You don't have that. So it's really when you think it's interesting, when you think it's of good quality, and when you have time, then you say, okay, I will contribute to the PCI. I will take care of one preprint, this one.
Okay.
Actually, that's interesting the way you describe it. It's truly peer review, right? Like if your peers want to review it, it rises to the top.
Yeah.
Actually, sorry, then another curiosity, practical question. Do the recommenders themselves need to continuously log in to have a look, just be kind of like, oh, I have a little time, I'll log in and see what's available? Or do you, as a recommender, do you regularly receive, I don't know, emails saying, this is available, who wants to, does anybody want to take it? Is it opt in or opt out, or push or pull that way?
So I don't have much experience with that, but my understanding is that you get contacted if an author suggests your name as a recommender. And if after this step, after 20 days or 1 month, none of the suggested recommender take care of the preprint, then they contact the community to say, hey, we have this one that didn't find a recommender, are you interested? And then you can take a look.
Nice. I think that is good, because I know myself, I apologies, I haven't yet, but I will sign up as a recommender. I know myself, I won't remember to log in to check, but if I get an email reminding me, I'm be more likely to do it.
I think we're all the same for that.
Any other questions from the group?
Mathieu, it may be just more of a comment, but is there a video? I thought your presentation was very nice, and I wish it could be seen by more people. So do you think this video will be available, or is there a video available? I thought it was pretty convincing. So if I want to recommend this, what should I do?
So Vanessa has recorded the presentation, and I will send her a link to the PPT so she could share it, and it will be shared on the YouTube of the STORK.
Okay.
Right,
So
and I will also post it on my Twitter.
Okay.
And it'll go on our Twitter, and I'll send it to everybody on the call, and then everybody that's a STORK member. So we'll definitely push it out.
Thanks, Fabrice.
All right, any other questions, or Mathieu, any final thoughts that you would like to give?
I'm good.
All right, anybody else?
It was nice to be here.
Thank you very much. I think this is great. I put in the chat a new podcast that I found. It's called Labor and Zor, out of Germany, but they do a nice job of the history and hitting a lot of the history that you hit as well. So I'll put it in the chat again.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to stop recording now. I can find my record button.